You're listening to Debate Amongst Friends on Anchor FM. Anchor FM is a free and easy to use platform where you can record, edit, and post your show right from your phone or computer, and it will be automatically distributed to platforms such as Apple and Google Podcasts. As seasoned podcast personalities, we found Anchor FM to be user friendly and resourceful, allowing us to create great shows and sound bites on the go. Last but not least, Anchor FM gives you an opportunity to monetize your podcast as they link you with potential sponsors, and you can potentially start making money by recording advertisements just like this. Kickstart your podcasting journey today with Anchor FM by visiting their website at www.anchor.fm, and we look forward to hearing your podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am the Professor John Gotti, and if you hear the sound of my voice, then you know that this is Debate Amongst Friends. And by my side, my client, the reigning, defending, undisputed Borderlands champion and podcast extraordinaire, Doc Leesner. Doc, how you doing today?
I am okay, but I'm pretty sure, can't confirm, but I'm pretty sure Jay Rich is going to try and come after you.
You know, if Jay Rich wants some of this smoke, he can get all of the smoke. I'm calling him out. Just like I do Stephen A. I'm calling him out. You want to go one-on-one with the Gotti one? You don't stand a chance.
It's like, I'll make you famous.
You don't stand a chance. You know why, Jay Rich? Because Professor John Gotti eats data. He crunches data with his teeth.
That's definitely my line.
That's my line.
That is my line.
That's my line. Jay Rich, you're going to learn jumping on is a lot easier than jumping off.
Wow. Wow. Okay, we're just stealing way too much stuff. Oh, goodness. But I'm doing
Jay Rich, you trying to step up to Doc and Prof, and when you can't even control Chelsea. Hey, you want me to tell you what Chelsea told me?
Don't you talking about Chelsea, man. Wow.
She said, I tried the young guys are much faster, stronger, and hey, they said they're 60-minute men, baby.
Woo. Shout out to Ric Flair giving us such great takes, man. But I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. You know, I'm back on the regular console in regards to the recording of this podcast, and it feels way better than it was last week. I think last week we had a couple of hiccups, but I feel like everything's back to status quo, and I'm ready to rock. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of stupid clickbaity stuff out there that I just don't even want to.
Absolutely. And I mean, speaking of consoles, I mean, we have been rocking some gaming amongst friends this past week. Excuse me, here, we're playing a little Borderlands 3. And some of these articles out here for week 1 of the release are kind of trying to give us the good, the bad, and the super ugly.
Super ugly.
I mean, let's start with the overheating.
Overheating,
because
okay.
I'm not understanding. So, ladies and gentlemen, so this is what's happening out there. So people are saying that a game is causing their whole console to overheat and basically crash, or I mean, I don't even know what and they're saying it's just Xbox One and Xbox One X, no other console. So I don't really understand unless this is one of those clickbaits where it's like, I want to sell more PS4s kind of thing.
Which is a possibility. We can put a pin on that one. We can probably approach that one later. But what I'm really am curious about when it came to this story that you presented to us was, what are their settings?
Now
because
explain that to me.
I know I had some performance issues. You had some performance issues as well too,
Yes.
and it was more laggy than overheating and things exploding in their faces. And we're not talking about Torg.
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand because I mean we're not talking about. It doesn't seem like they're talking about network settings. Like that's what I'm trying to understand because
Well, and,
I
I'm
mean
not talking
I
about
think you
network
can play
settings
any game.
as well either. Because remember, when we first started playing the game, we went through the actual settings within the game to adjust things like the ADS or aiming down sight for those that don't know, sensitivity,
Hmm.
vehicle sensitivity, things like that. So I'm talking about those settings.
But
What do
even
they
when
have it
you
currently set? Because and they even said it right there in the menu that if you increase these settings, your performance will fail. Which means, for those that are unaware, if you increase the amount of power your Xbox has to push out to in order for your game to work, it will overheat and it will shut
that
you down.
so that part makes sense because most of those settings I didn't even know what they were. I
Mhm.
didn't see any purpose to increase it. Um, I seen there was some purpose to decrease it, which I was okay with a lot of things decreasing because you know the game was pretty raw and wild when you first turn it on. It's like whoa, whoa,
Absolutely.
whoa, this is a brand new game, and even we talked about sticking with the classic controls. I mean, I'm sure even something as simple as that might even cause the game to be on the fritz in combination with those other things.
Well,
I
it's a
mean, you're
multiple
asking
of
this game to
things
do a lot.
if they're trying to make a story so centralized like this, like we need cause and then effects to
I'm
better understand and to better because we play on Xbox as well too. And other
We
than the
do.
few times we got kicked out the game, usually due to networking issues,
Correct.
you know, the only thing that we had issues with was just the performance. But I know I made my adjustments and now the game is running way better for me.
Way better. Same here. Even after you told me about the vehicle sensitivity, I'm able to drive just a little bit further, extending my 5 minutes that I had said I wanted to
wait,
drive
wait.
before.
Let's sidebar real quick. Tell them about the vehicle stuff. About now you're pushing yourself to get behind the wheel and show people why you're the best driver to ever come out of the great state of New Jersey.
Wow. So first and foremost, the doc doesn't drive in these games. I'm not really a driver. I usually sit in the back on the heavy gun and just kind of shoot. I'm a shooting kind of guy. Like, that guy that sat in the back seat shooting Ricky, like that would be me, I guess,
Wow, I
in the
can't believe you said
game.
Ricky.
I would be that guy shooting Ricky in the back seat, not driving so much because that's not my skill. It's not my strong suit. But in this game, it's not as bad. And who knows? Maybe in Borderlands 2, we would have had an opportunity if I would have decreased the sensitivity in Borderlands 2. Could have been the same way. But I think the driving in this one is way more loose than in even Borderlands 2, even with the sensitivity down. But I will
Yes.
say this. I will say this. When you want to talk about the good of Borderlands, I will say cinematically, cutscenes, dialogue scenes, and even the fighting, cinematically, this game is such a good looking game.
This game is awesome. I'm gonna start
Yeah,
off
like
with that.
and
Like this game plays excellent.
yeah, because it's like and even the new features and the new tweaks and the different guns that do different things. And I've played around with a lot of different guns, and it's just like it's mind blowing when you're sitting there. So I could see how with the wrong settings now, thinking about it, if you got the wrong settings and you turned it all the way up, certain things all the way up, I could see how that could tear your whole console space mountain down.
Yeah, it's highly
Because
possible to do that.
even the fight scene we were in yesterday, it was like you know enemies all over the place, and so you think about it. If you have your settings turned up at that moment where the game is already pushing out a lot of energy just to get those people on the screen, I mean, I could see that. And Xbox One is not a young console anymore either. Even
No,
if you got it brand new, it's
if you played the
still not
original
a
Xbox One, it's pretty old.
yeah, it's not a brand new game. So And we'll see how it is. Hopefully, this game carries over to the new Xboxes and new PS5s and all of the other stuff. But ultimately, the other bad part, which I know you were mentioning before we started, and this should be fixed. I'm hoping that this never happens to either of us. But of course, Borderlands was known in the beginning, Borderlands 3, for having a nasty bug that erased people's files. Now, I'm thinking that this also seems like either a console or
Well,
maybe even a
this is only
computer.
for PC.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It would have to been like a computer kind of thing where and by the sound of it, it sounds like these are people who were playing like a lot. And because I mean, I think one part said that a person had lost 11 hours of gameplay. Now, don't get me wrong, we've played probably about 9 hours at this point. If you're saying 11 hours on day one, I mean, you're pushing your console, your computer, you're pushing everything to the limit.
Well, and that's not, and we don't even know if this is someone who played it even earlier than that, because there were
And
people
that's what
who
I
was
was
playing
thinking.
Borderlands 3 since the week prior to its releasing.
And that's what I'm thinking. Because to find a bug like this, I would hope that it was before the game came out.
Yeah,
Because if
yeah. Once
you
again,
were,
it
I mean,
like
that's
for this
huge.
this is definitely a clickbaity article.
It
If
is.
people were saying that they're still having issues saving, then this is something that I'm pretty sure Borderlands would be, Gearbox would be, and 2K, of course, would be completely on top of. And it's not to defend them either. For all we
Right.
know, it could be a bug, within saving the game that caused it to become
Hmm.
corrupted. It could be just a matter of, the mapping is incorrect or something like that. So,
Without
so we
question.
don't know that much. So I'm not going to sit here and defend them. But at the same time, it goes back to, okay, well, you have about 10 people making this complaint, and I'm pretty sure this was before, today. And if it's not before today, then either A, they didn't apply this patch that Gearbox probably pushed through,
Hmm.
or B, they're just tweeting it for the sake of tweeting it, or C, their Twitter was lagging itself and it posted today where it should have done it last week.
I mean, one thing I will say, and I talked about this off stream, but the one thing I'll say is that I did have a slight small glitch where I was in my menu during, I believe, a dialogue scene, and then it switched to a cut scene, and then we loaded back in, and all of the weapons that were in my backpack were gone. Um, Fast forward about 2 3 minutes, go through, I think a door or something, and they're back. So it might have just been a small glitch there, the thing's trying to catch up. Because I know when we do go into our menu and even go to something like trying to update a skill point, at
Mhm.
times it is kind of slow because it's loading that picture, of the Sentinel or of the Digiclone, which because of course, I'm playing with Zane McMahon. So we have so much more for you and more clickbaits after this short break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Debate Amongst Friends, segment two here, where we're going to get into some of this NFL action. Injury football league is in full effect, but we're going to jump into some of these games, and there's no other team who has been vanquished by injury so far than the New York Football Jets,
Absolutely.
who've lost two quarterbacks back to back like they're on the cover of Lethal Weapon, back to back. Yeah.
Now, it was no yeah. Trevor
Well,
Simeon just got demolished
and
by
I didn't even see the
Miles
injury.
Garrett. I mean, and I caught the highlights, of course, but I
Yeah.
mean, even within the highlights, like, had the Browns not made so many mental mistakes,
Hmm.
because the amount of penalties they had during the game,
Right.
they would have won by a much larger margin.
Really.
Yes,
That's interesting. I mean, and a lot of people are talking about or not talking about Baker Mayfield, I guess, in a positive light. And I mean, he has struggled in the first two halves of the last couple games. Last two games, like the first half, he struggled. A lot of people were saying that even last night's game was really Odell Beckham Jr. carrying the Browns on his back. What do you think about that comment?
I feel like those people have way too much time on their hands, and they need to relax because it's only the second game of the season.
It is. It is. And they're all still trying to gel. I mean, and we knew going in, not to buy into that Madden hype. And I think I talked about that last week. Buying
Absolutely.
into that Madden hype is so tough, and only people who are living up to it so far is, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, which we're going to talk about later, but he's the only people that are trying to kind of keep it up. But
Yeah.
I mean, moving forward here, I mean, I think the Browns, they came in with a game plan, obviously knocked out the Jets quarterback. I think Demarius Thomas got knocked out as well. They held Le'Veon Bell, and unfortunately hurt my fantasy team. But,
Yep.
that was neither here nor there, I guess.
I mean, once again, it goes back to it's just a matter of coaching. Going back after the game and coaching them on the mistakes that they was having. They had 18 penalties in the first game, and they're
Mm.
averaging about 13 penalties so far this season. So, like right now, their problem is a lot of mental mistakes. Everything else is gonna come. Like people are acting like, oh well, Mayfield might be trash, and the Browns are not who we thought they were. Like, let's calm it down. It's only game 2 of the season.
Yeah,
We're acting
let's.
like if it was like week 8 and they're like 4-4, yeah, by all means, like give it to them.
But
They're
you know what I think?
well deserve it. But we're talking
But you know
about
what I
just
think it
2
is?
games though.
I
You
feel
know,
like everybody's on Dolphins watch.
well, not even. First of all, that's
Oh
hilarious.
and 2. 0-2, and we're on Dolphins watch.
Exactly. Like the
Everybody.
same team that beat the Browns last week, the Duke's Titans, got destroyed.
They
Actually,
did.
they didn't get destroyed, but
I know what you mean.
they got slapped. They got slapped in the
And
face.
then I mean, at the end of the day, a loss is a loss. I mean, whether you
And
lose by 1 or you lose by
exactly,
15,
like
30,
it doesn't
a
matter
loss
how
is a
you win
loss.
the game as long as you play to win the game. And the Browns
Hello?
managed to win the game on Monday.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like we're
And
acting like this is, oh my goodness, it's the 14th game of the season, and
mm,
they're last 4 out for a playoff spot. No,
now,
relax.
now the one thing I will say before we move on to the next game is that I mean, I can definitely appreciate and understand what you're saying. I think fans know that you know every game to them is a playoff game, especially a team like the Browns,
Hmm.
the Jets, the Bucks, these games early in the season where you can win, but then you lose, and then it comes down to the end of the season in these tough divisions, especially, and you're one game behind, and you're like, man, if we would have just won that game earlier in the season, we would be in a better position. So I get it, but you're right though. They do need to calm it down just a little bit before they start burning any jerseys.
Well,
Now,
and I won't even blame the fans for this. It's the media that's doing this.
but as I always say,
Because
whenever you hold on, hold on, hold
before
on,
preseason
hold
even
on,
started,
hold
everyone
on,
was on the
hold
Browns
on.
jock.
I know, but hear me out.
Tell them, tell them, Doc.
The one thing I will say is similar to when you have an actor that plays such a great role that you hate them even outside of their role. It's kind of the same role as the media. Like they do a great job, even though we hate them for the way they do things, they do a great job of building certain storylines to a point where it's like you either like or hate something. You know what I mean? Like the last couple years, the Bucks have always been the team to watch. Oh my God, they're the team to watch, which set fan expectations up high. And I'm going to
Yes.
transition into the Bucks with this statement. It always sets our expectations to be high. Where this year it's like, oh, they got a new coach. Let's see if he can turn it around. We haven't been slated to win 10, 11 games like we have in the last couple of years.
Yep.
And now we're kind of like even keel. Obviously, this week we beat the Panthers by two, which I was not two, but excuse me,
By
by
six.
six, which I
Yes.
was okay with a last minute saving touchdown, which the Bucks have improved defensively. They have improved, and even though we got beat up last week by the 49ers, it was more of Jameis than it was the entire Bucks team.
Correct.
Last year, the Bucks would have been just imploding everywhere. Defense would have gave up 40, 50 points. Offense would have not done anything. But the real story, and this is where the media comes in, is centered around more of the Panthers.
Yep.
So it's more, and it's not even the media, because even Jay Rich, I know we mentioned Jay Rich a few times, and for those who don't know, Jay Rich is on one of our sister programs with Marking Out Amongst Friends, which occurs every Thursday around 8 o'clock. I mean,
Yes.
they're talking about wrestling, WWE, maybe a little NXT, hopefully diving into a little AEW and the
No,
other circuits.
probably not. I don't
We'll see.
know.
We'll see. Let's see what happens with Jay Ritty and the gang and Lady Great One. But what Jay Rich said was that the Panthers and Cam Newton are really slipping, or it was something along the fact like that the Panthers are dipping rather than the Bucks kind of climbing. And I was, that's where I was like, well, let's take a look at
That's
this
an
here.
underhanded compliment too.
Yeah, it's like the Bucks, and I've said this to a few people, and I'm hoping that the Bucks continue this trend. But the Bucks have only given up one touchdown so far in 2 games, which is awesome. Several field goals. Again, if Jameis doesn't throw 2 and 3 pick sixes and all this other stuff, fumbles and whatnot, we're looking at a different scoring outcome for the last week's game. That last week game, but I think given what happens this week, I think the Bucks might be a team to look out for, especially with the injuries that are going to be coming in, especially with the next game that we're going over, which is the Saints versus the Rams.
Yes. Which
Which,
was plagued by injury.
yeah, and I mean, I hate it. I love it, but I hate it
Hmm.
that Drew Brees went down. And I mean, yeah, I hope he's out for the season.
Wow.
I mean,
Take a drink of water after that
hello.
statement.
Yeah,
Wow.
take a drink. Let me take one too. Then shoot, I'm gonna drink that Kool-Aid. I'm hoping he's
Wow.
done. I'm
Which
hoping he's done
once
for the
again,
season.
from a Bucks fan perspective, I understand why you say that. You
Yeah,
want to
but
win by
Teddy,
any, and I already said this earlier, by any means necessary. Like you want to be able
even if it,
to
even if it's
put
an
your
asterisk,
team in a position to win, to get into the playoffs, and potentially have a chance to battle for a Super Bowl. I mean, we've seen a lot of people,
right?
make it to the wild card game or make hit uh, get a playoff berth as a wild card team and run the
Hmm.
table. So I mean, anything can happen.
And I
But the
mean, don't get me wrong. I feel
Drew
bad for the
Brees
Saints.
injury, though, I mean,
I
he's
mean, don't
going to
get me
be
wrong. I
out for
feel
a few
bad for the
weeks.
Saints. I
It,
feel bad for the Saints because they've had two straight years of really bad luck. I mean, you had the missed
and
pass
this is
interference, the
potentially a
missed
third one now.
tackle.
Yep.
Yeah, and now you got Drew Brees' injury. Now, the one thing I will say, which I'm really surprised, is that the Saints, went out and are. I don't know if they re-signed or they just starting Teddy Bridgewater. I believe he might have already been there.
Yeah,
Um,
he was
I'm
already there.
surprised they're. I'm surprised they're giving him the nod over Hill. I'm actually pretty surprised that they're not going to give Hill a chance.
I don't
Um,
know what Sean Payton is thinking with when it comes to Taysom Hill because they have him doing everything.
yeah, I think he should get a shot. I mean, right now they got him playing out there like he's Tebow or something,
Well, I was gonna say,
and
I
I'm talking
mean, he
about,
could potentially be, maybe not quite the athlete that Tebow was, despite the fact that
He's
people
really good.
completely forget about who Kiba was and how dominant he was when he was actually playing.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm just gonna
I
put that
mean,
out there because people be just like, oh well, he can't throw. Like, he could throw.
he can throw. He can throw. He can definitely throw.
People
It's
just have
just
issues with his mechanics, and then
right,
that
which I
turned
think
into, well,
was
he can't throw.
yeah, and I
But
think that
but
ultimately messed him up
I mean,
also.
maybe they'll probably do that. I know I mentioned before the show that the Saints are looking to sign JT Barrett as another backup quarterback.
You did, which I like JT Barrett. He's a great leader. He's a very
He is
smart player.
very smart player.
Um, but see, that's also kind of weird because it's like, JT Barrett's another short quarterback.
Yep.
You already have Taysom Hill. I really think is really good. I mean, I don't know if he can do everything that Drew Brees did, but I don't think that's what you're looking for. But I know last year when they put, I think, and I don't know if it was late in the season. That's right. They
Yes.
put Teddy Bridgewater in the game, and even though he was running with the twos, it really didn't look good.
No. I mean, and he
You
really
know,
didn't have a good game at all either. On
yeah, he
Sunday
really
against the
didn't.
Rams as well. I mean, first of all, it's the
Uh,
Rams. Like, let's just
it is.
the Rams are a
Let's
top five defense.
let's give them that credit.
Love
I
them or hate
agree.
them, they're a top five defense in this league.
Let's give them the credit. Let's give them the credit. Absolutely.
But I don't
Uh,
know. I mean, maybe if they give the ball to Taysom Hill under center, I mean, we could have a Colin Kaepernick, moment right there because they can run a whole bunch of a levy amount of biff packages. You won't see him sitting out there in the flat,
right.
pulling a Jay Cutler and not moving the ball when you hike the ball. Like, he'll go out there and he'll run a
Right.
couple of routes for you.
Absolutely, which he has, and I appreciate Sean Payton for using it in a variety of ways. It's pretty
Absolutely.
awesome, actually. Which moving on to the next game here, which is the Steelers and the Seahawks. Obviously, another game plagued by injuries as the Steelers lose Big Ben for the remainder of the season with an elbow injury. Tough break for the Steelers. I mean, you you basically lost your big three in less than a
Yep.
year.
Yep.
That's insane.
In
Like
less
really,
than
really
like
insane.
a few months, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I mean, and James Conner, I think, is hurt as well.
Yes,
He
James
might
Conner
be
is hurt.
dinged up, and that's a rough blow. So I think they signed somebody to their practice squad, which at this particular point, and shout out to the Seahawks first and foremost, who were able to win the game. But
Thank you for saying
I
that.
think at this, of course, I think at this particular time, and we knew eventually it was going to come up, and I hate it, but I think it's time for cap watch.
Ooh, we
I
going
mean,
here.
it's cap watch time. I mean, I know you mentioned it for Taysom Hill, like, hey, maybe they run it like Kaepernick or run it like a Tebow, but I mean, maybe a team says, hey, let's bring Kaepernick in.
They're not
But
going to do
here's
that.
the issue I have with that. Here's the issue I do have with that. It's been several years,
Yes.
you know, and despite how good he was several years ago, I'm not saying he was great. He was good.
Mm-hmm.
And although I think he can probably play better than someone like JT Barrett and some of these other people that are coming in, I don't want him to come in and be trash.
And I'm so glad you said that because that's the scenario that's going to be. That is
It's
the
a big
scenario that
scenario.
we are potentially going to see. Picture
That
this.
that's so huge.
Just picture this for a moment. Colin Kaepernick gets signed by a team. The media's in a
Hmm.
frenzy. Talking about, well, how good is he going to be? Will there be playoff aspirations and stuff like that? And he struggles for like the first 3 games because he got to get his football legs back. I mean, you know what this is. Like,
I do.
you can't just go back on the field and start throwing the ball. Like, you got to get the feel for the game again. Doesn't matter
Hmm.
if you're just throwing the ball, in your own work. It's totally different than throwing it, in a game.
Yeah.
And then as soon as that happens, that first 3 games, man, Kaepernick is trash. I don't know why they
And
signed him. Someone cut him.
Someone cut him. Now imagine if he went to the Browns. If he would have went to the excuse me, if he would
I
have
was
went to the
like,
Browns,
he probably
if
wouldn't
he
be
would have went
playing.
to the Browns,
Oh,
if
yeah.
he would have went to the Browns before they drafted Baker Mayfield,
Yeah.
and then this year, imagine if he would have went if he goes to like the Dolphins or the Jags.
I don't see it with the
I
Dolphins.
mean,
I mean, I think the Dolphins would only sign him just for the news coverage.
publicity.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need something. They need something, and I feel so bad for that coach because
No, they need the
this is his
lawyer. That's what
first
they
year.
need. Okay. Like I was over here joking around because we was a friend of mine on Facebook was joking around talking about they need Snowflake from Ace Ventura.
I mean, which is hilarious. That
And
is
then I
pretty
had
funny.
to, give her a little dose of reality. I'm like, Snowflake ain't there anymore. She's like, well, no, Snowflake's in the movie. I'm like, yeah, that was decades ago. Snowflake is dead.
Oh my
Like the
god, I can't
Dolphins
believe
right
that.
now.
Oh
They're
my god.
dead.
In which, just throwing it out there now, since we're talking about the Dolphins really quickly, and them just trading away Minka Fitzpatrick, I thought was so dumb. Two said Steelers who just lost to the Seahawks.
Yep.
I, I don't even know.
It's trying to get Tua. They're trying to get Tua.
Which I'm
They're
not
trying to get
100%
Tua.
sold
They
on
don't have
Tua.
a QB.
I mean that's why you went out and drafted, and you should have drafted a
Okay.
quarterback. I don't know what
Thank
they
you.
were thinking. I don't know why they went with Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, I know why they went with Ryan Fitzpatrick, but in that offense, that Bucks offense last year, that was something special. I mean, you're talking about Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, OJ Howard. I mean, although Jameis doesn't use them as effectively as Fitzpatrick did, that offense under Dirk Cutter at times, passing wise, was awesome.
I
But
will agree.
this Dolphins team, after trading away Kenny Stills and your top tackle, and I mean, this is just not a good team.
It's just not good. They're
They're
just not
just not
good.
good. They just can't play with them, can't coach with
All
them.
right, like Sonic like to say, it's no good.
No good. So next two games here, which are huge for the upcoming week, you got Chiefs versus the Raiders, and then the Ravens versus the Cardinals. So Patrick Mahomes loses his number one wide receiver, right? He loses them in the first game, you
Yep.
know. So we're like, oh my God, who's he gonna throw to? Blah blah blah. Who the heck is Demarcus Robinson? We know
Another
who Sammy
young
Watkins.
another young player
Yeah, we know who
who
Sammy Watkins
who
is.
who no one really cared like and that's what I love about
Mm-hmm.
professional sports. Like you get these type of stories and they're like, well, who the heck is this Robinson kid?
I don't know.
Who actually had a pretty good um pro day.
He did.
He didn't really have as much of a good combine. I think he finished like in the 20th percentile in like
Mm-hmm.
the 40-yard dash and stuff like that. But we're talking about a good speedy receiver, and that's what the league needs. That's what the league is pretty much all around: speedy receivers.
And replacing somebody like Hill again is it's not an easy thing to do. But
Exactly. I
I
mean,
mean,
and
this guy
and, and
came out
according
balling.
according to the Staple fact, I mean, you just can't teach that.
You can't teach that. And just to give you this quick little tidbit, fantasy. I know Yahoo, for example, has him most likely being the most added wide receiver of
Yeah,
week 3.
everyone's jumping on
Which
that bandwagon right now.
who's right on that bandwagon? The Doc, because I picked him up immediately just in case Mahomes decides to do an encore.
He could.
But on the reverse side, you have the Ravens, who went out and beat the Cardinals 23-17.
Mm-hmm.
Another strong game for Lamar Jackson, who threw for 272 and ran for a buck 20, which is Vic-like.
But but
I mean,
but
it's
Doc,
huge.
I thought Lamar Jackson couldn't throw. I thought he was
You
an
know,
NFL quarterback.
I
He
thought he
can
was a
throw in the pocket.
Heisman winner. I thought he was a Heisman winner. I thought he was a lot of things, but some people just forget. They just
I know.
remember him being. They
I
remember him
know.
being at the draft, waiting in the war room, like, oh, nobody's calling my name, and then he gets drafted, and he has this Russell Westbrook look on his face, like, oh, I'm gonna show him,
Oh yeah.
and I mean, that's it.
I mean, and we here at David, we love players who play with that chip on their shoulder because they
Absolutely.
hear what fans and media and scouting reports say about them. And once they keep saying that you're a one-dimensional player,
Hmm.
they got to go out there and show out, and that's what Lamar Jackson is doing so far. Now suddenly he's an MVP candidate.
Now
Now,
that's where I would say,
not one person before the season started even had Lamar Jackson's names in their diaphragm, forget mouth,
wow.
for
Now that's
MVP
where
consideration.
this is where I would say it's too early. Let's let it play out. Let's see what happens. That I feel like it's too early. Let's at
Well,
least give that to
it
week
goes
8.
back to what we always talk about. Like, you can't sit here and start making all these proclamations 2 games into the season.
Yeah, that's too
Like,
fast. I wouldn't say that.
it's not the proper sample size to start making these predictions
That's how
at
people get
all.
kind of sucked up to, like, you had a spark when you started, but now you're just garbage. Like, hey,
Exactly.
we don't want to do that. We don't even want to touch that. We don't even want to go anywhere near that.
I
But
mean,
what we
you
do
said
want
it
to go
yourself with
near,
the Bucks. I mean, the Bucks started out amazing,
they did. They did 1-1. We could have been 0-2, just like the Panthers.
and
Or
they fizzled out.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
It was a little spark,
No,
it started to become a little flame, and someone just stomped it out.
it happens to the best of
We,
people.
as media and football fans, need to stop making these bold claims 2, 3 weeks into the season.
Well, this is where I understand what you're saying, but I think they all can't be like Doc and Prof. Okay, like I'm
Yeah.
not sitting here saying the Bucks are going to the playoffs or anything like that. Well, I mean, I am excited that we're winning, and I think that's the thing. Your team is winning. You feel I guess, a certain pride of, like, wow,
Yes.
and that's why the excuses seem so huge when the loss comes in.
Well,
You know,
let's look at let's analyze Doc real quickly, okay, ladies and gentlemen.
oh,
We're gonna
don't
do a
don't
quick
don't do that.
psychoanalyzing of the
Don't
Doc.
do that.
Now,
Don't do that. Oh
when the
God.
Bucks win, and
Right.
they win, ladies and gentlemen. Don't act like they're bums, because they're not. They're professional football players. They get paid a lot of money to play this game. When the
Right.
Bucks win a game, you do not hear the Doc going on social media saying the Bucks are going to win the Super Bowl. The Bucks are
This is
going to the
true.
playoffs.
I don't
All
do
he
that.
says is, "I'm glad they won. I'm happy that they did this stuff right. Here's some things that they could do to get better, and I hope that
Right.
we improve on that on the next game. I just hope
Without
we win
question.
another game." That's exactly what the Doc says
I hope
every
we win
single
another
time.
game. Big time facts. That's
Versus,
huge.
versus, oh, we're
Uh,
2-0. We're going to the Super Bowl. No, you know what
mm.
team I'm talking about.
I do, and I know I said I wasn't gonna even bring them
I
up.
know,
I
but
mean, it
you
seems
know
like
what I'm
you're
talking
close.
about.
Seems like you're.
Like
It
we
seems like you're
had,
close.
like, here's why we can't use this small of a sample size. And this is looking at past histories. We had teams that started their first 4 games under 500, and they made the
Hmm.
playoffs and had a really, really good run. I don't know if people remember this, because this particular quarterback said this, and people kind of mocked him when he said it. But he told everyone to RELAX,
He did.
and they ran the table,
They did,
got to the playoffs.
without question. Which, which kind of actually brings us to our next subject, which is kind of, the whole passing of the torch with the guy who spelled out RELAX. And some of these other quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Mahomes versus Jackson coming up this week. Is kind of primed for the future of the NFL almost. Like, these two
Absolutely.
guys, these young guys are primed to kind of take over those top spots. And when you look at it, and it was funny because last week I was just saying that somebody like, a Marcus Mariota could dispel or disprove Jameis is claiming to being number one, but then of course he comes out and doesn't have a great game. Now everybody's just like, we're right back to where we started, where it's like, they both stink or one person stinks this week, whatever. But Mahomes versus Jackson is looking to be the new, the way they're building it, Brady versus Manning, you know, Breeze versus Ryan, I guess, Eli versus Dak.
No, that last one
Okay,
is like
okay,
completely wrong.
okay.
No,
I was trying to
no,
give him something. I was trying to give him something.
maybe
Okay,
Eli versus Tony,
okay.
maybe,
Eli
but
versus
not
Tony.
no,
Okay,
no,
okay,
no. The Giants lost their
okay.
last 5 games against Dallas. No, stop it,
Yikes! I didn't
stop it.
even know that stat.
Yeah.
But
Once again,
you have to be
thank you, Mia,
excited,
for now throwing all these stats all of a sudden because people don't want Eli to go to the Hall of Fame.
which they need to just stop it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming back here. Next, we're going to talk about Jalen Ramsey and his agent. That's right, Jalen Ramsey of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know if he requested a trade, the agent requested a trade, team said we're going to trade you, but somewhere along the line, they said, hey, you know what? This is just not working. And this all comes from a big blow up on the sideline with him and the head coach of the Jaguars. This is a really, really crazy turn of events because Jalen Ramsey is a really, really good player.
Very good
I'm
player.
hoping, I'm hoping that this isn't one of those situations where he runs himself either into a situation where he's out of the league after a couple years. Because if he gets traded and then he starts to stink, a la what we were just talking about with Kaepernick, it kind of doesn't spell good for him. Now, granted, he's actually slated to make about $20 million or something ridiculous next year.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever team brings him in is going to have that cap space ready.
And I agree with you. And this is a more of a complex situation than it is, messy. I mean, it's both actually, if you really think about it. But
Yeah,
the
I mean, so,
Jaguars front office, and we always been, Doc loves talking about front office management because he loves doing a lot of the
mhm,
GM stuff when it comes to playing Madden. So he could probably
right?
attest to this more than me. But they really didn't do that good of a job. Like after they, defied the odds, they managed to get to the AFC Championship game against the Patriots a few years ago. They haven't done anything since.
Well, you know what happened last
And
year was
and and the
that.
team got worse.
Well, no, let me tell you. So what happened with the Jaguars is that after they made it to the playoffs that one year, that deep run, they went out. They spent a lot of money that next year trying to retool,
Yep.
and that money just did not work out. Like,
Yep.
it just didn't. You know. Plus, they stuck with that quarterback, which I can't even remember his name right now, Blake Bortles. They stuck with
Yes.
Blake
I was
Bortles.
like, you don't remember Blake Bortles?
No, I really didn't remember his name for a second. They stuck with Blake Bortles, hoping that he can turn it around. In which, when you look at it, it was just a year too long.
Yep.
They should have made a move and tried to get somebody else. There was talks last year, if you remember, of the Jaguars trading for Eli Manning.
Which
There
they should have did.
were, which they probably should have. I think it would have probably been a lot better. Obviously, Tom Coughlin's down in Jacksonville. It would have been perfect. But in this situation, I don't care what happens. I just don't want to see this young man somehow end up with the Patriots.
And the worst part is that's actually possible too.
It's like that's the news. It's like somehow the Patriots still have, well, I guess it doesn't matter because he only makes $3 million this year.
Yep.
But it's like somehow the Patriots get Jalen Ramsey to pair with the McCourty twins, to
Yep.
pair with freaking everybody else they have on that team, and it's like,
Yeah.
yikes.
They could trade away Patrick Chung and some picks. They can make that
I
happen.
mean, So right now it looks like that, and I don't blame the Jaguars. So if Minka Fitzpatrick is worth one first round pick, I could honestly I don't know if Jalen Ramsey's worth two, but he's definitely worth a first round pick and maybe like a third or fourth. Um, but I think they want the works for it. They want two first round picks for him, and when you look at it, I could see a team if they have the pick still. The Seahawks, if they have any left, I don't even know if they have any left. Um, I would throw my Bucks in there, but I just don't see it happening. You know, there are some teams out there. I know I saw like the Giants
Hmm.
that obviously could use them. I'm sure that team that's local to you could always use a playmaker like Jalen Ramsey to be the reincarnation of Deion Sanders.
Uh,
Um,
you shouldn't have said
I
that. They're
guess he'd have
listening
to
now.
wear.
They wasn't listening
I guess
before.
he,
They're listening now.
I guess he would have to wear number 22 because he
Wow.
can't wear number 21. But I don't know. But what about this whole idea of players requesting trades? Like, and I know it happened with the NBA. I guess Kawhi is a name that comes to mind right now, but
Yep.
it's happened a few times. It was rare in the NFL that
Yes.
somebody would request a trade. It was very rare, but now it seems to be happening a lot more. So, I mean, what's really going on with these players these days?
It's a generation shift. That's pretty much the ending and beginning of it all. Like it's a generation shift. Like it's gonna be a different way how the NFL needs to do business, a different way how these franchises need to do business. Like people don't stay anymore because they know that it's
True,
a better opportunity to either, get into the Super Bowl and win the championship. Like that's really what they want to do. And then they want to get paid after that.
getting
Like it's
paid is where
easy
it's
for
at.
him to sit like we've seen players in both
Mm-hmm.
leagues, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
stay with a team and make bank, but
True.
they got nothing to show with it.
Nothing.
Nothing at all.
Nothing.
But a lot of players these days, and maybe they took some hints from the NBA. They're like, I want to win. And if your priority isn't winning, then why am I here? I'm wasting my talent, trying to will this team towards victory, but I can only do so much. A
True.
great analogy is, one can't throw the ball and catch it.
That's true. Can't. Just can't do it. I mean, ultimately, it's going to come down to, who offers the most money. I mean, I
Yep.
really don't know. I mean, I'm hoping that it's, again, I just don't, I don't like when the rich get richer, but I guess if the rich are paying the price, like you think about a team, you know, like the Rams, the Patriots, these teams that are already pretty solid. You get a guy like Jalen Ramsey to join your team and shut down half of the field. I mean, who cares about giving up two first round picks? You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, who cares? You're picking 30, late 20s or 30. Like, who cares? You're going to get a shutdown corner that you're going to have for the next 5 to 6 years. And it's like, that's worth a first round pick.
It is.
So, or it's worth two, in which, you could easily, find somebody, which a lot of teams do find great players at the end of the draft. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next with him. Um, I don't know what team's going to, but like I said, they're going to get a good corner. I'm hoping the Jaguars can just kind of figure it out and kind
Hmm.
of, make up with him. But it seems like Doug Marone kind of just rubbed him the wrong way, I guess. Well, give us a few minutes and we're going to be right back after this short message. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of every show, we like to give you what's called the 2 minute drill, where we go over some topics that didn't make head news, but we want to make sure we cover them to give you that little bit of insight. And I'm going to turn it over to the Professor John Gotti.
Absolutely. And I mean, I might need a a sweater because it's starting to feel a little cool. I think October is here, which means MLB playoff baseball is about to be upon us. Right now, we have a few teams actually who are clinching. One of them are my Yankees. Um, the Red Sox are kind of still in the hunt. I don't know how many more games are left, but as it comes along, we'll get you more news for it. Doc?
Excellent. Right now, the Giants have decided to bench Eli Manning for Daniel Jones for the upcoming game against the Bucks. Obviously, they like Eli, of course, but I think they're ready to start a new era. And as we said a couple weeks ago, it's easy for New York because they always do this. It's exactly how Eli got his starting job replaced in the middle of the season. Back to you, Prof.
Thank you very much. And after 15 years in the NBA, two-time NBA champion Sean Livingston decided to retire. Doc?
Dolphins, who, as we know, have been caving, you can say that they're starting to tank, currently have 5 first-round picks in the next 2 drafts so far. This is just until they start trading some more people. Back to you, Prof.
And a big shout out to the big spread of love out to my grandmother who got back home from the hospital after having some surgery. And we wish her a great and safe recovery.
Definitely speedy recovery. And that is all for today's episode of Debate Amongst Friends.
Thank you for listening to Debate Amongst Friends. Give us a follow on our social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
You can also listen to all of our Debate Amongst Friends podcasts here on Anchor, as well as Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and iTunes.
And like we always say, goodbye, mwah, and to all, a good night. LASG.
Peace the ocean.
Yay!